If you think about those old pictures of New York City, early 20th century, looks kind of orderly on the surface, doesn't it?
Deceptively so,
Yeah,
especially down by the waterfront.
exactly. Beneath that surface, there was this, well, this fierce battle going on for control. And today we're diving deep into that world, looking at one specific group, the White Hand Gang.
Yeah, we've got some pretty intense source material here, excerpts detailing their history, what they did. We're really trying to get a handle on, why they formed, what made them tick.
Right. It's more than just another gangster story, isn't it? We want to unpack how they rose, why they fell, what their motivations actually were.
And their impact, definitely. How they fit into the whole New York underworld back then.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Where and when are we talking about?
We're looking at the early 1900s, running up to about 1925. That seems to be their main period of activity.
And geographically, New York City, obviously, but where specifically?
Primarily the waterfronts. Brooklyn, Red Hook in particular, that was their turf.
And why did they even form in the first place? What was the driving force?
Well, the sources are pretty clear on this. It was basically pushback, opposition to the growing influence of Italian gangsters.
So-called Black Hand gangs?
Them, yes, but also just the increasing presence of Italian immigrants in those areas. There's real ethnic tension there.
That name then, White Hand. It sounds deliberate, like a direct response.
Oh, absolutely. The sources really emphasize this. It was chosen specifically to be, well, white against the perceived non-white Italian presence.
So it wasn't just about crime or territory. It was deeply racial, or rather ethnic.
Very much so. That anti-Italian sentiment was core to their identity. And it wasn't just talk either.
No, the sources paint a picture of serious violence, right?
Definitely. Brutal acts driven by that prejudice. But interestingly, the sources also highlight a lot of internal violence, fighting amongst themselves.
Really? So not exactly a unified front.
Not at all. Which, probably made leadership pretty unstable.
Speaking of leadership, the story kind of starts with Denny Meehan.
That's right. Denny Meehan. He's pegged as the founder, got things rolling.
Now, what happened to him?
His end kind of sets the tone, actually. Shot, killed, right in his own bed, sleeping next to his wife.
Wow. Okay, so violence from the very beginning, even at the top.
Exactly. Establishes the stakes pretty quickly.
So Meehan's out.
Yeah.
Who steps up? Bill Lovett.
Bill Lovett, yeah, Meehan's successor. And the sources suggest he really escalated things with the Italian gangs. Took a harder line.
But his death, it seems a bit murky. There are different stories.
Yeah, there's the famous one, maybe more legend than fact, involving Willie Two-Knife Altieri.
With a meat cleaver in a bar.
That's the one. Very dramatic. But the police version, according to the sources, is different.
What did the police say happened?
They said Lovett was drunk, went into some abandoned store with an associate, and ended up beaten with something blunt and shot.
And the associate, what was his story?
Well, that's where it gets suspicious, doesn't it? He claimed he was also knocked out or just passed out, woke up hours later, saw Lovett dead, and just left.
Sounds a little too convenient.
You bet. The police at the time apparently suspected it might have been an inside job. Maybe someone from Lovett's own gang, or even a rival Irish gang.
So that internal conflict you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It underscores that instability. Constant threat, not just from the outside, but from within, too.
Okay, so after Lovett, we get Richard Lonergan. He was Lovett's brother-in-law.
That's right. Lonergan takes the reins. And if Lovett escalated things, Lonergan seems to have really gone for broke.
How so?
He apparently started targeting the big emerging mafia figures directly. People like Vincent Mangano, Albert Anastasia, Joe Adonis.
Wow, those are heavy hitters. He was really poking the bear.
You could say that. He was making some powerful enemies, and it sets the stage for, well, the end of the White Hand Gang. The Adonis Social Club incident.
Right, this sounds like the climax of the story. Christmas night, 1925. Tell us about it.
Okay, so Lonergan and a few of his guys, 5 others, the sources say, walk into the Adonis Social Club.
Which was Mafia-owned. A speakeasy.
Yep, in South Brooklyn. And it's Christmas night. There's a party or celebration going on, mostly Italian patrons.
And Lonergan's crew wasn't exactly low-key, I gather.
Far from it. Reports say they were drunk, loud, obnoxious, basically looking for trouble, throwing their weight around.
And Lonergan himself.
Yeah.
The sources mention specific things he said. Ethnic slurs.
Yeah, pretty vile stuff. Apparently yelling things like wops and dagos, just openly antagonistic and racist.
It really shows that core prejudice, doesn't it? It wasn't hidden at all.
Not in that moment, certainly. And then there was the specific incident.
With some Irish women.
Yes. They were there with Italian dates. Lonergan apparently saw this, got furious, chased them out, shouting something like, come back with white men for Chris' sake.
Geez, that's incredibly blatant. Really lays bare what they were about.
It's a stark example for sure, and it seems like right after that outburst, things went bad. Really bad.
What happened?
The lights suddenly went out. Then gunfire. Chaos in the dark.
And when the lights came back on?
Lonergan was dead. So were two of his men, Aaron Harms and Cornelius Ferry, found right there in the club.
Just like that. 3 leaders killed violently in, what, just a few years?
A devastating blow. And the aftermath is interesting, too. The police looked into it, obviously.
Did they have suspects?
Well, the sources mention Al Capone's name even came up.
Capone? Really? Why him?
Apparently, there'd been some run-in between Capone and a White Hand member back in 1921, and Capone was, a major figure, but
No proof.
no solid evidence linking him to the shooting. The case eventually just got dropped. It adds a layer of intrigue, though, connecting it to that bigger underworld picture.
Absolutely. But the immediate result for the White Hand gang was predictable.
Pretty much catastrophic. Lonergan was the 3rd leader killed. There was no strong figure left to take over to hold things together.
So they just fell apart.
Exactly. The sources indicate the gang basically evaporated pretty quickly after that. No leadership, internal fractures. They just couldn't sustain themselves.
And the waterfront.
Yeah.
Their territory.
By 1928, so just a couple of years later, the Mafia was reportedly in complete control. The White Hand was gone, and their rivals had taken over. A very decisive end.
It really highlights their failure and the Mafia's rise, doesn't it?
It does. It shows how that combination of intense, hate-fueled external conflict and internal weakness just doomed them.
And for anyone listening who wants to dig even deeper, the sources we mentioned, books by Pietrusa, Schoenberg, Downey, are great starting points.
Definitely worth checking out if this period interests you.
So let's try and summarize the key takeaways here. What does the story of the White Hand gang really tell us?
I think fundamentally it shows just how powerful ethnic tensions were in shaping organized crime back then. Their whole reason for being was tied up in that anti-Italian sentiment.
It wasn't just business, it was personal. Ethnic hatred was baked in from the start.
Absolutely. And their downfall wasn't just a random event. It was kind of the logical conclusion of their own internal problems and the way they aggressively antagonize rising powers.
And that downfall cleared the path, essentially.
It really did. It marked a major shift, cementing Mafia control over that crucial waterfront territory for decades to come.
So, a gang born from prejudice, plagued by infighting, destroyed by violence, ultimately paving the way for their enemies.
That sums it up pretty well, based on what we've looked at.
It really makes you think, though, how much of history, especially the history of crime or conflict, is driven by these deep-seated ethnic or group tensions, even when it looks like it's about something else on the surface?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. What other major events might have similar currents running underneath, that we don't always see at first glance? Definitely food for thought.